Good morning. Thanks so much for having me come and speak to you this morning. I'm really excited to be here. I always feel like the younger sister hanging out with the older cool kids at this conference, but everyone is really welcoming. The organizers are always superb, and I'd like to thank the reviewers for their comments. I found them helpful. Today I'm going to talk to you about some of my interests, some things I'm working on, and some things I've done with family history. It's called Bring Out Your Dead, Visualizing and Sharing Family History Data. So why am I doing this? This is really show and tell, and a lot of this is just for me, but I'm going to talk a little bit about why I'm doing this, a few of the things that I've tried, some more things that I'm in the middle of working through, and the benefits. So why am I doing this? Well, it's a convergence of two of my interests, my position as a scholarly communication librarian and my interest, my obsession in genealogy and family history, and a little bit of Monty Python just thrown in for fun. So in my role as a scholarly communication librarian, and the fact that I was once the sole manager of the repository and I was a metadata librarian, I often got asked by colleagues and others how to share outputs. For example, up here in this corner, this scrapbook was digitized. Images were taken, let's say that, but they weren't shared. For a number of reasons, it wasn't possible. But the donors was promised an online exhibit. And so it needed to happen fast, and it needed to happen right away. And so I ended up just loading a whole whack of the images into Flickr and linking back to the repository with some explanatory PDFs. Another thing that happened was this professor was retiring, and he had written this dictionary of engineers, and it was on the department website, and he wanted it to remain. He wanted it to still exist. So he wondered if there was something I could do. Thankfully, at the time, we were playing around with Archive It, and I was able to capture it because it's a static web page. And so it is there, but I'm not sure about its use. And I sometimes wonder if there are other things we could do with it to help make it accessible and findable. Over here, the Handbook for Metastasio Research. Again, it's a faculty member retiring. He's created this database of databases, all this information on the poet Metastasio, very important for 18th century Baroque opera because his works were set time and time again. I don't have any way of really keeping this. We did export the data, so that was good, but I'm not sure what I can do to make it interesting and useful in future. And then also thinking about some things that we have on campus. Barnett Legacy Collection. John Davis Barnett was sort of the founder of Western Libraries. He donated 40,000 books, as you can see. And there are lots of, the provenance is interesting. There are lots of marginalia, notes. There's all sorts of things that, yes, we could put them in the 500 note Mark speak, in the catalog, but it would really get buried and hard to find, and so doesn't sort of showcase or celebrate the unique and exciting bits of this collection. So in my role as a librarian, I'm often asked to help to build a website. So I think it really boils down to three things: helping folks manage research assets, thinking about access to those assets and the final outputs, in the long term. Are these things useful? Do someone can use them in the future? Which is long-term digital preservation, thinking about how we can make everything sing and dance now and in the future. So bare facts only tell a part of the story. For example, I've discovered recently that John Lithgow and Dr. Henry Louis Gates are DNA cousins. And that's a fascinating piece of information that you wouldn't get from the birth, death, and marriage vital statistics. Also, here's my own family, my family tree. This is my pedigree in Ancestry. Ancestry is probably the most commonly used tool. A lot of public libraries now have it for free. You can use it at Western. I have a paid subscription right now. Also, they have tons of material to dig into, and so for the 19th century, it's really great. But what they don't tell you is that this gentleman here, Christian Warner, who was a Butler's Ranger, became one of the first Methodist ministers in the Niagara region. It doesn't tell you that this gentleman, Adam Chrysler, was hanged for treason, or that his wife, who was able to give evidence on behalf of others, was not able to support her husband because she was his wife, and so that was not allowed. The data doesn't tell you that this couple had a very troubled marriage, or that my grandfather owned a grocery store for a while, or that my dad sang in musical theater. So while you get a picture of some family history, you don't really get to dig into the stories. And I think that's what really makes it interesting and exciting. Here are some other ways that family history data is shown. This is a family group sheet. So again, it gives you a little bit of context, but not a ton. I'll just whip through these. This is from WikiTree. WikiTree is an online wiki for building family trees. It tries to be a collective tree. That's great. So this is a way you can share it, and WikiTree has a number of things like this to help you share things online. A fan chart from Family Search, lots of fan charts. Again, it's just another way to visualize it, but again, I don't know that it gives you a lot of context. And finally, I'm going to show you Gramps, open source software, just this again, a fan chart, but if you want to know more about the Gramps project, you can read about it on their blog. So those are sort of ways that the data can show. So why do we visualize data? Data visualization is useful for data cleaning, exploring data, detecting unusual groups or identifying trends. Are there any patterns? Evaluating the output and presenting results. And I'm sure you all know this already, but I thought I'd just reiterate that. So I'm going to give you an example now of me digging into the data and verifying a family story. And I'll try and be quick about it. My father remembers when he was young, very young, so probably around 1940, driving with his father from Niagara Falls to St. Mary's, which is just north of London, where I live here. And he knew something was up, something was odd, and he thought they were visiting some family, but he didn't know anything other than that, and that's about all he remembered. He could tell me that there were 2 farms that he recalled. He said one was really higgledy-piggledy, and it was, a couple chickens, couple pigs, couple cows, and it was just kind of a little bit crazy. And the other farm, he said it was neat as a pin. It had all these tractors in a row. He said it reminded him of 7 brides for 7 brothers. So me trying to verify this story, that there was in fact family there, I took this map from McGill, Digital County Maps. Thank you for digitizing those. And I overlaid it in Google Earth. I rectified the map, and I found the spot. Because even though I knew the lot and concession numbers, they don't really show up. They don't show up in Google Earth. It's really hard to find. So I was trying to pinpoint the place. So that I said, Dad, let's just go for a drive and see if we can find that spot and see what we see. So we did. Since I was able to pinpoint it this way on Google Earth, and I was able to find the spot, and we went for a drive, and I found this farm, and we noticed it because on the barn, you can't see it here. I snapped this out of Google Earth. It says George Pickle, and George Pickle is this gentleman here, and he is my dad's 3rd cousin. And my dad phoned George later that week after we saw the barn, and talked to him, and yes, they are in fact relatives. They share a great-great-grandfather, and now they talk on the phone every couple of weeks. So these 2 90-year-old gentlemen are now buds. That was one thing I did, and I think that's really cool. Anyway, so another thing that I have done is used Night Lab's timeline, because getting all your ducks in a row, all your information in a row can help you think about it and visualize it and dig into it. What I like about it is that they provide you with this spreadsheet. So I just have to fill out the spreadsheet on Google Sheets, which is lovely. And then, which is really nice, is this text box. And that's where I was putting in a bit of explanation, context, even some analysis, so I could figure out what was going on with this particular family. I find this branch difficult because there are 3 guys named David Pickle, 3 generations, and there are other Davids, and it gets a little confusing if you're not sure where they are or when they were. And so it's nice to be able to lay it out. So you can make a really nice visual with it, as I have done here. I think you can add photographs. You can talk about copyright with people because you can add copyright statements inside. You can add context and description. It's very, very useful and easy to use. I found quite handy. And so the timeline is here. And so I will stop that. So another bit of family history that I discovered is that one of my female relatives was sent to the London Insane Asylum. She was very ill by all accounts. And so I wanted to find out more about what her life might be like there. And I've been doing some reading about the asylum and its history and the folks who worked there. But I also found out through our archivists that we have the diaries of the bursar. Dr. Charles Sippy was the bursar at the asylum at the same time that my aunt was there. Dr. Sippy was not only a doctor, but he was a musician and spent a lot of time with the choir. He and his brother were organists at local churches. Sorry about that. And his diary is fascinating. So I wanted to transcribe it, and I also wanted to text encode it. And I think text encoding works for something like this because, of course, text encoding is an XML. It makes it machine readable so that other things can use it, can read it, can delve into it. I can bring out features that may or may not be noticed if it was just an image. For example, every day starts with a weather report. So perhaps someone who is interested in meteorological history or in the environment might be interested in what he has to say about the daily weather. There's a lot about businesses that he supported and people that he was a very social man. He visited shops and had conversations. He was very interested in politics. He was very interested in the local churches and how they were run, I think because of all the time he spent as a church organist and listening to what was going on. He also played whist. So there's a group of people who played whist, and the scores are in there. And so with text encoding, what I can do, and I'm working on, is creating an authority list of all the people mentioned in there. And I'm going to try and just build something that I hope is useful. And because it's open, others will be able to use it. And because I'm creating it in a lightweight way using XML, that it'll be useful in future. So I'm working on this. I got a long way to go, but I'm excited to get going and share that with you. I would say that I did try transcribing using Transcribus, which does, I'll go back, sorry, which does AI transcription, but it wasn't all that great. Also because I didn't give it a lot of time to learn what to do. And so it didn't work for me. Also, I didn't want to pay. But I also found that actually reading and transcribing the diary on my own really helped me to dig into the diary, which got me thinking about what I wanted to do with it. And so I think if I had just had it automated, that I probably wouldn't have been so close to it and thinking about it. And I think that's another advantage of the text encoding. I was lucky enough to go to Oxford DH this summer, and I saw some fantastic things with TEI, and I have built a small community of folks that I can speak to. And there is a great TEI community because it's been around for 30 years. I saw what was happening at Cambridge with Darwin's letters, with Newton's notebooks. There's just some really great stuff. And I love how they show an image of the page. They give the text encoding if you want, but there's a transcription. And it got me really excited, as you can tell, to do something like that. So I'm going to work on that. And also while I was there, I discovered Palladio. Palladio DH comes out of Stanford. It's a web-based tool for visualizing complex historical data using networks and maps. And so again, it's got me really being purposeful, thoughtful about the data that I have. Because as I showed you, that pile of documents before, this thing back here is just full of pictures and images of documents. But here I really had to be thoughtful about what I was putting in it. So I've got the title of the document, information I've pulled out of it, the names mentioned. And so when I have this list of names, then suddenly I had a way to make a network image because I did have all of my nodes, and then I can create the attributes on my nodes. So I liked Palladio for digging into the data. It does also have some outputs to share. So just for fun, I'm showing you one of the lightweight networks that I built. This is showing where all those people, the named people back here, all these names in this list, they became my nodes, and the target is their birthplace. So I can see that this group of people all came from Kinderhook, New York, and I know that they're related, but it's nice to see it laid out this way. And maybe this will help me figure out if I'm actually related to Jacob Gordanier, this fellow here who is a loyalist. And I think I am. I'm lacking one piece of evidence. So maybe I'll get there soon. Right. So Palladio, you can also do mapping with that. So I've got all my places and GIS location codes, so I could build a map to test some things in there. You can also do a digital collection, a bento box of images. Yeah, that works. One of the other things I'm working on, we have some fantastic GIS folks at Western Libraries, Lizzie and Jordan, and they've been teaching folks how to use GIS and how to build story maps for quite a while now. I've picked up a few things. I'm definitely not as good as they are at this, but I'm mapping the documents of a particular fellow, because my great-great-grandfather, because he's all over the map, actually. He moved around a lot, and I was really trying to figure out where he was and what he was up to and what was going on. He's the one who had the very troubled marriage, and I think this is part of it. He was a rambling man. And so just mapping it out like this helped me figure out some things. But also in the story maps, I can put up an image of something and talk about it and give analysis and discussion. And so I think this to me also, I can bring in the Night Lab timeline. I can bring in other pieces of information and put them in my story map on ArcGIS. I can also pull information out. And so even though this is something that you pay for, there is a free version, and I can also get information in and out. So that's kind of what I've been up to. I'm sort of in the middle of all of this, so it's very good of you to let me speak to you about what I'm doing and how it's going. One more thing, I'm thinking about nodes and edges and attributes and building a Gephi network, a network using Gephi as a tool. But rather than just say, here's a bunch of people and here's how they're related, because I kind of know that already. I do have all these family charts. What I do need to do is look at DNA, and I think this can help me map out DNA, because the DNA shows that the documents have one relationship, but the DNA is showing me that there are some, shall we say, half relationships that I have to figure out. So just to wrap up here, I know I threw a lot at you. I think there are benefits for doing this work. For me, it's understanding visualization tools and how I can support open ones and the tools that are commonly used by humanities scholars. If I know how these work, then I can help others. I can think about how they might share their outputs. Data is more likely to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. It's fair. So we can do digital preservation. Things are more likely to be useful in the future. And this is going to help me share my family history stories beyond tree charts. So it might be interesting to someone other than me. So thank you very much for your time and for your attention. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you want to chat anytime, just send me an email